Welcome to Creepypasta. Please like, share and subscribe. This will help us make more content for you. Thank you.
I think I just became the background character for another person's glitch. This technically happened last night, but I was just starting a graveyard shift, and am only now getting it all down. I work at a gas station chain with only numbers in its name. We're just outside of a large chunk of suburbs, none of that, middle of nowhere, like we aren't exactly near any other businesses, but we are rarely completely dead for hours at a time. It was just past midnight, and with everything going on in the US right now, not a lot of things other than gas stations and bars are open at night anymore, so it was a slower evening. I was the only one in the store, and a car pulled up to one of the two double-sided pumps out front. Pretty standard white four-door. I'm not great with car brands, but it was a little nicer, like upper middle class, and probably only a few years old. A woman gets out, and starts walking towards our door, like she's in a daze. Legit, this woman looked like she saw a ghost. She wanders up, sort of freezes at the door for a second, with a 1,000-yard stare before opening it, and coming in. She didn't go looking for anything, didn't start shopping, just sort of stood inside for what felt like ages. Again, bars are still open, so I think maybe she's a little drunk, or had a rough night, or something, so I give the usual, "Welcome to gas station, let me know if you need any help finding anything," and she finally notices me, and immediately asks me the weirdest damn question I have ever been asked on the job. "You can see me, right?" "Yeah." "Like what else do you say?" She breaks down crying in the middle of my store, so I'm already headed around the corner to see what's up. I have my cell phone out, in case I need to call the cops or something for her. I get her to sit down on a nearby pallet of soda, and I'm grabbing her a bottle of water, and after she catches her breath a little, she tells me, "I thought I had died." Again, I'm thinking maybe she is on something, but she's a middle-aged woman who looks like a standard local suburban housewife. We're a pretty boring township without your average junkies, like you'd find closer to the cities. So, she asks if she can call her husband to pick her up and wait with me. She has her own phone and does so, not really telling him anything, either just where she is at, and if he can come get her. He says he'll call an Uber and be there as soon as possible. We're waiting, so far nobody else has showed up, so I'm keeping most of my attention on her, and eventually she starts to explain to me. I was driving home from dinner with my co-workers, and as I'm driving through nearby intersection I recognized a truck ran a red light and hit me. Now, her car is still at the pump without a scratch on it. She goes on to say she remembers her car being pushed into a pole, going airborne, and then nothing. I tried to calm her down, letting her know that her car is out front, and it looks fine, but she insisted that she completely blacked out, woke up in an ambulance for a split second, passed out again, and then woke up again in the driver's seat of her car, at the intersection waiting for the light to change, perfectly fine. This whole thing freaked her out so badly, that she drove to the nearest anything, us, just so she could get out of the car. Husband eventually showed up to get her. He asked if I had any idea what happened, and even though she sort of explained to me, I just shrugged because, no, I had no idea what was happening anymore. She reluctantly got into the passenger seat of the car, and he drove them back home. That was hours ago, after which I worked an entire shift at the station, trying to wrap my head around what the absolute hell I had just witnessed.
I died in late 2015. I was given a second chance. I've never used Reddit before, but a friend of mine was talking to me about the glitch in the Matrix subreddit, so I decided to share my story here, since I don't have any explanation for it almost 3 years later. Rewind back to September 2015, I was a freshman who had just entered high school 2 weeks prior. Already school was weighing down on me, and I'd been continuing a habit I had, of going on walks to clear my mind. On this day, I'd been walking around a pond near my house. There's a trail that goes around the pond, and then the trail leads up to a set of abandoned train tracks on the other side, which sit about 15 feet above the path and pond below. After walking the circle, I was crossing the train tracks, when I decided I wanted some ice cream. The fastest way to get to the ice cream shop was to take the path below the train tracks, but there isn't any way to cross the pond without going all the way back around, and being 14 years old, I decided that I could just jump from the tracks onto the path below, and keep walking. Looking down from above, it didn't seem to be that far of a jump, so that's what I did. The next thing I remember after that was being half-conscious in an ambulance. Everything was extremely blurry and the paramedics sounded slightly panicked. I wasn't able to move either of my legs, so I think they were both broken. This scene continued on for a few minutes, until we arrived at the hospital and I was wheeled into the emergency room on a stretcher. I only had a few minutes in emergency before I eventually lost all consciousness, and that was the last thing I saw. After I'd been unconscious for what felt like about an hour, I opened my eyes, and I was on the ground. I just hit the ground after jumping, but this time I was fully conscious. I hadn't noticed this before I jumped, but there had been a car parked watching me. I think they thought I was attempting suicide, but it probably looked that way, and the people in it had jumped out and called an ambulance for me. The ambulance ride had been the exact same as it was the first time, and I was put into the same emergency room that I had died in before. The only differences between the two events were that I was fully conscious this time, and my injuries were much more minor. I was discharged from the hospital the same night, with only stitches in my lip, a slightly fractured jaw, and a mild concussion. For a while after this, I assumed that the first scenario had just been a weirdly coincidental dream that I'd had while I was unconscious, so I didn't consider it anything abnormal. It wasn't until a few weeks after, when my mom told me that the people who had helped me said that I had been conscious the entire time. I hadn't been knocked out after hitting the ground or anything. So, that entire scenario managed to happen in the few seconds it took for me to hit the ground, while I was still conscious. Anyways, I'm not very good at describing things, especially with how blurry this day was, now that it was years ago. But, I'm 17 now, and I still have no way to explain what happened that day, other than I died, and was given a second chance.
Incredible experience. Something similar happened to me in 2015, on New Year's Day at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. Walking outside of Denny's with friends, getting ready to hit the highway, my buddy asked me to drive home. I said no problem. I told them I needed to run back inside and use the restroom. When I came back to get into driver's seat, I looked back and told everyone to get their seatbelts on before we leave. While they were strapping in, I looked up the road and saw a car about 400 meters away. It looked strange, like all of a sudden it was accelerating at us. I said, "What the hell is guy doing?" Before we knew it, the car was flying at us into the parking lot. The last thought in my mind was, this is how it ends. And I felt the vehicle hit us, and smash into our face, and my teeth and body get smashed. I thought I knocked out. The next thing I knew, I looked at my body, and I was standing outside of the car looking at the vehicle that seemed to hit us. It somehow projected straight over us, hit the Denny's sign, and fell onto a car in the parking spot next to us. It was like we quantum shifted out of some reality. I looked to my friends to see if they were all right. Everyone was. One of the guys said, "Dude, we just died and quantum shifted. That's how real it was that we got hit." Later, the officers came to do the report. Everyone lived, including the drunk driver who fell asleep. The officer said, "How did the car fly over you guys?" "We didn't know." Another officer said, "This looks like the set of a Hollywood movie." There were a set of tracks through the grass in parking lot, where we were directly at the driver's side door within 1 foot of car. How it didn't hit us is a total mystery. The part that freaks me out is that had I not gone to the restroom, would that have happened? Maybe the truth is, we never die.
One time I was on a suspension bridge, when it snapped, and myself and about 20 others fell with the bridge. Almost all of us after talking later that day reported a second or two where we felt we were unconscious, as if only while we were falling we blacked out and woke up on the ground. We all assumed that, while we were falling, the adrenaline rush kicked in, and for some reason that made us black out for a few seconds. I know this doesn't really help you much, but though I'd share my kind of similar experience.
Think of time as a tree, with an infinite number of branches. Every time we make a choice, do I turn right or left, do I move to this city or that, another branch is formed. If you were to die in this timeline, you would be dead as far as you and anyone else in this timeline was concerned. Some people report feelings of disorientation and time loss. They've reset, so to speak, from the point at which they made the decision that led to their death. Some people report that they've subsequently noticed that little things around them have changed, or even big things. As a matter of fact, if you're interested in it, look into the multiverse or infinite universe theory. Michio Kaku puts it, I think, in an understandable way. Quantum immortality is rooted, generally speaking, in genuine scientific theory, albeit with a whole lot of guessing and faith in the mix. For me, it's a comfort to believe that somewhere in the infinite multiverse, there's a version of me that still has loved ones that have passed.
Do you have a creepy story? Please share it with us in the comments, and we will post it on the channel. Please subscribe. Thank you.